All right, guys, we got a good one for you today. We got this 2000 F350. It's going to be another one of those of what's that noise. So let's pull it in the shop here, and I'm going to show you a clip of what the sound is like, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do. All right, so as far as getting the transmission dropped so we can get access to this flex plate, I'm not gonna go through step by step. I'm gonna take it all and have it all ready to drop the transmission. I'm gonna walk y'all through on, I undid this, I undid that. This is what the size this is, because it's really pretty self-explanatory. If you don't grasp that concept, you probably shouldn't tackle this job. But I'm gonna go over that. We're gonna get down to the flex plate, and we're gonna show what we find and how we're gonna fix it. So y'all stick on for that. All right, so we have got everything ready to remove. We got 2 bell housing bolts, 1 on each side, and we have 1 bolt remaining in this cross member over here, and that's so that we can do everything standing up on the lift. Now we're just off the floor, so we can use this heavy duty, I think it's a 2,000 pound transmission jack, and I think it goes 32 inches off the floor, and that's the way I like to do it, especially with the transfer case. It's so much easier and safer than doing the high lift, and you don't have to separate these two then to get the transmission back. So what we did first was remove our drive shaft. That's your 12 millimeter, 12 points there, and same thing on the front drive shaft. Like I said, we got all the bolts out of here, which all these are 18s and 15s on this cross member, just depending on which bolt you're talking about. 7/8 bolts on your transmission mount there. Undo your neutral safety switch. This is a manual transfer case, so we undid the 2 10 millimeters for the manual shift. Undid our shift linkage, just pops off of here. You got, I believe those are 13s for your transmission linkage that comes down here. 1 more connector on top of the transmission. There's another one back here on the transfer case, which that's the indicator for being in 4-wheel drive. You got your 14 millimeter bolts. There's 6 of them for your torque converter, and the 3/4 bell housing bolts, which, like I said, we have 2 of those left in right now. So, and your transmission lines, I did miss those, which are 5/8, and the previous shop that did a transmission job on here did a fantastic job of rounding that one off there. And that's it. So now we're gonna get those 2 out. We're gonna take the last bolt out of this once this transmission is supported, and then we can do those 2 bell housing bolts and slide it back, and we'll have access to our flex plate, and we'll be able to take a look at it then. All right, so we're not saying this is the safest way to do this, right? But it always works. So the way the 4R100 pan is, you got to put some blocks in between here, because you don't want to just crush that one part of the pan. And support it. Got the motor supported with the ratchet strap, so it doesn't try to tilt down when you separate the transmission. Transmission is ratchet strapped here, because the chain that comes with these usually is not big enough to go around these transmissions. Definitely not a Z06 for sure either. And this is the part I'm sure y'all gonna just go straight Karen on me with. It works, trust me. We're trained professionals, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that's the monstrosity, because this can just sit right here while we do our flex plate, which we got our bolts out, and bingo, there's your problem. That's what they do, they crack there around the bolt section there. Let's get this out, put it on the table, and take a look at it. Show how easy that falls out. Well, hang on. This is the noise we were hearing. Was it rocking back and forth like that as the motor spun over? You get the RPMs up, it would stop. See how easy that comes up. There it is. Basically nothing was holding it in there other than pressure. All right, so while we have the flex plate off and we're replacing it, we're gonna do a rear main seal. Yes, the rear main seals do not leak typically on a 7.3, but we're here. Who knows when this transmission will be out again. It was rebuilt before Paul bought it by the previous owner. So we might as well throw a brand new Felpro rear main in there. And yes, it's fine to not use a Ford gasket on this, because Ford does not make their own gaskets. Anyways, Felpro makes great gaskets. We got a leaky up pipe there. Left side's leaking a little bit, right side a whole lot. We're gonna put a set of full force diesel bellowed up pipes on it that I have on the shelf here because it's super easy to do with the transmission out. So this is one of those things, if you're having to do either a rear main or do your flex plate, whatever, it's a good time to do all this stuff because it's so much easier to access it while you're doing it. So let me get this pulled off. I'm gonna show y'all how to do that without the special tool also. As long as you have an automatic, you'll have the tool you need right here to press the wear sleeve on. So you can use that, and I'm gonna show y'all how to do that. All right, so after you pull your 5 8mm bolts out, what you want to do is you don't want to get crazy with this, but you got to get something and start just working around the edge of this. So you get this RTV off first, it's hanging out around the edge, and you don't want to get something thick behind here and just start prying and getting crazy with it. You want to just work it underneath it, and I'm gonna have to have both hands to do it, but the idea is just don't get rough with this. Start working it around. It's kind of like taking the high pressure oil pump cover off of a 6.0. You got to get something underneath it and start breaking the seal, and then you can steadily start working it off. All right, so here's what I'm talking about. Start small and graduate up to this, and then you can kind of just start working it around the edge here and get it loose. What you don't want to do is drive it down to the crankshaft and start marring up your crankshaft. Forgive me, this is above my head, and I'm standing over this transmission that we dropped because I really don't want to move it because it's right where it needs to be once I drop the truck back down. And there you go. You're gonna have just a little bit of seepage of oil, not a whole lot. What you can do, if you're doing this on the floor, you can jack the back of your motor up some so that the oil's tilted to the front more. I could actually ratchet strap that a little bit tighter, but I really don't want to do that either because it's right where I want it also for putting the transmission back up. All right, stick you some paper towels in around the crank there so you don't get trash in it, because that's a direct passage right there into the motor. You don't want to introduce any of this into there. And now you start scraping. We got to get all this RTV off, and then we're going to wire brush this and clean it all up really good. And once again, don't be hitting and nicking on the crank here because you don't want to cause another problem there. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up, and then we'll delve into the installation here. All right, here's our Felpro rear main with the wear sleeve in it there. And look at that, USA, America. But there's your wear sleeve. You can see it has a bevel. I mean, I don't know who would try to install this backwards, but this obviously goes this way onto the motor. But don't pull the wear sleeve out of here. Install it all as one unit. You don't want to pull the wear sleeve out of it. So what I do is clean the wear sleeve. We've already cleaned and polished up on the crank with Scotch Brite pad here. You don't want anything super abrasive, but you want to get it nice and clean all around it. We're going to pull our paper towels out. We're going to seal it up with our Motorcraft gray sealant here. This does come with a gasket. It's your choice, use the gasket or not. I like to put a coat of gray on this, put the gasket on, put another coat of gray on that. I feel like it's just good insurance for not leaking, is using the Felpro gasket. I think Felpro knows what they're doing. So use the gasket, clean your bolts up, make sure you don't have anything in your bolt holes that hold your rear main on. So I'm gonna get to that point of where we're gonna press this on with the adapter here. And I meant to add also, if you have a current wear sleeve on here, you can't install another one over the top of it. You gotta remove the wear sleeve, and that's where you really having the special tool comes into play, because you gotta have that tool to be able to grab the seal and walk it off of the crank and press it off. But we do not have a wear seal. That was the original Motorcraft rear main on here. So just verify that you don't have it before you start messing up a brand new gasket. All right, thin coat, not a thick coat, of the gray Motorcraft sealant on the back of the seal here. We got some red Loctite gel smeared right there on the sleeve. I put the gray sealant on the back side of that gasket. That's how I like to do it. I'm going to stick that up there. That way you're not worried about that flopping off, falling around, whatever, while you're pressing this on here. So now I'm going to get this lined up and press it on while this stuff is still soft. Time is kind of the essence. You don't want the stuff to set up too much before you start pressing it on. All right, and there is your tool provided by Ford to install. You will be able to turn the seal to line it up with the dowel pins. You just don't want to pull it off of the wear sleeve. Anyways, so now just gonna go around and just do a little bit of a turn at a time and just keep working your way around. And you wanna go small, minuscule amounts. You don't wanna go too far on one bolt. You wanna press that on nice and even and don't distort it at all. All right, now is the point where you wanna make sure that your dowels are lined up when you start getting close. We've worked it in a good bit, and what I'm doing is I'm going one turn, well, I mean, not even one full turn, like a third of a turn on every single bolt, and just working it in nice and slow all the way around. All right, and that is what your finished product should look like pressed on. We got our bolts all cleaned up on the wire brush. Now, these do pass through into the motor, so you do want to put a little bit of sealant on these so that you don't have a chance for some oil to actually weep out of the bolt holes here. All right, and that's what you want with your sealant coming out there, not too much, because the amount you have squish out here is probably what you're gonna have on the inside. You don't want any pieces that can fall off and get run through the motor and stop up an injector or whatever. 180 inch-pounds is what we torqued the 8mm retaining bolts down to. So now we are finished with the rear main, and now we're gonna move on to doing up pipes, and then we can do a little bit of cleaning back here and put this transmission back in with the new flex plate. All right, we're moving on to the up pipes. With the transmission out, this job is as simple as getting that V-band loose back there. So I'm gonna get it backed off. I'm gonna show y'all how I break the clamp loose real easy. Getting that band clamp loose is as simple as you put your air hammer on your Y pipe, your collector back there, and just give it a bump. Just like that. And I probably missed it on the camera because I'm trying to do this one hand. You see the clamp's loose now. That vibration breaks it just loose. Now that our band clamp is loosed up there, don't even bother trying to loosen these bolts up at your exhaust manifold. Just do the right thing and make it easier on yourself and just cut them. So with all the bolts out, you can see this side literally just fell out and damn near hit me in my teeth. So that's how wore out them donuts are in there, that without the bolts holding up in there, it's just got nothing on it. So I'm gonna start wiggling and get this out of here. See if I can set y'all up to show me getting it out. What will make this a little more challenging is if you have 4-inch exhaust set, just that one pulled out just the same also. Just move your transmission dipstick too out of the way, and you'll have to go up because this won't fit out between the exhaust and the adapter plate here, which you could take the adapter plate off. That's not really a big deal if you wanted to or needed to, but 4-inch exhaust is the only thing that's really going to change making this any more difficult. All right, full force diesel up pipes are in, and by in I mean they're just sitting in here on the bottom with the lower bolts just finger tight at this point. I did have to take the down pipe loose. I don't know why I didn't take that loose earlier. It's been a while since I've been able to do up pipes with the transmission out of the way, but you do need to loosen your down pipe, especially if it's a 4-inch, because it's a tight fit getting it over there. So I'm going to go up top now, mate it up to the turbo, tighten the V-band up top, then I'll come back down and actually tighten up and torque these lower bolts. And then the up pipes are done, and we can move on to the flex plate. All right, we got our up pipe clamp tightened back up. Very important to make sure you are mated correctly to the back of the turbo, nice and flush, because if it's not, don't rely on the clamp to pull it up, because it won't. Got our down pipe tightened back up, same thing there, hold the down pipe in place, tighten the clamp up. So now we're gonna go down and do our final tightening up on the up pipes, and then we can move back on to the flex plate. Now aren't those pretty? All in place and bolted up, no more leaks there. So now, what we've done is we've given this plenty of time to start curing up before we even get remotely close to cranking the truck up still. So I'm gonna grab the flex plate, we're gonna put our adapter back on, put the flex plate on, Loctite our bolts and torque them. So one last thing I want to say before we cover this up with the adapter is it's very important to torque your flex plate bolts to the proper torque, which we're going to go over that when we torque it, because if you look, there's just not a lot of meat from the outside of this hole to there. So if you put this on with impact and you get too crazy with it, tighten it up too much, it can distort this outer edge. And this is gonna cause you to have a leak here because this is gonna kind of whelp out, swell out if you do over tighten it. So don't do that. Use a torque wrench, torque it to the right thing. All right, we got Lee up front with a breaker bar and a 15/16. We have Loctited all our bolts. We're now gonna torque them to 89 foot-pounds. I don't care even if you're using a cheap torque wrench. Use a torque wrench. Don't just tighten these up. It does matter. So let me get these torqued, and we're gonna move on and doing whatever little prep we have left to mate this transmission up. All right, so it's all sitting back in here. Bell housing bolts are all finger tight. Cross member is bolted in on the driver's side, of course resting on the frame over there. So now we can stand underneath here and complete the job standing up. So I'm getting ready to tighten up the bell housing bolts, which I don't know if we showed what it takes to take them off, but I use that long bunch of extensions and the impact, and that gets you way out here past the cross member so you can get a good straight shot and getting those tightened up or loosened up, whichever. So do that first, get your cross member all bolted in, get all your wires rerouted, your vent hose rerouted, shift linkage, transmission lines, front and rear drive shaft, torque converter bolts, and that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna get busy. I'm gonna put some music on, have me a cold beverage, and get busy rocking, put this together, and I'll catch up with y'all when we go to crank it up. All right, we're on our last step here, which is putting our torque converter bolts, nuts back on. Everything else is done. We're about ready to fire this thing up. One more quick little tip. If you are here by yourself, you don't have help like me, just take your 15/16 socket. You can spin the motor over to where it'll line up, the stud will line up for putting the nut on it, and you can rest it right here on your pitman arm nut right there and hold it for you. All right, we are all assembled. Everything's tightened up. I sprayed down anything that was oily with brake cleaner so that we could double check for any leaks on this. So we're gonna crank it up, let it get to operating temp right here on the lift, and just double check that rear main seal that we did, make sure all that's good. We're gonna listen for any odd noises, and we're gonna verify we have no exhaust leaks with our up pipes installed, which I never have doing that, but we're just gonna make sure. So let me get this thing running up to operating temp, and I'm gonna go take a whore bath in the shop sink so I can go drive it. Let's see how she sounds now. Much quieter. You can talk around the truck now. Man, it was loud before. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the video on throwing a flex plate on this truck that had that terrible cracked flex plate sound. It was obnoxiously loud. Doing the rear main seal, which is just a good precautionary measure, even though it's not typically a problem on the 7.3s, kind of might as well do it while you're there. It's not too hard to do. Just remember, if you take yours apart and you have the sleeve on there, the wear sleeve, you're gonna have to have the tool to remove that. Otherwise, you can do it the exact way that I did it, which is why I was showing y'all you don't have to have the tool to just install that, but you do have to have the tool to remove the sleeve. Another good thing to do would be your up pipes. If you got up pipes leaking while you get the transmission pulled, it's so much easier if you're trying to save some time. You don't want to pull your turbo, you're not having any trouble with your pedestal, nothing like that. Do that then at the same time and just knock out 3 different things while you got it apart. Anyway, it's not too bad of a job. You can do that on the floor with the jack. And if you were only doing the flex plate, you also would not have to completely remove the transmission out from under the truck. You can move it back about 6 inches to give yourself enough room to get a breaker bar, ratchet, torque wrench, all that stuff up in there, and replace just the flex plate. Done it that way several times before, but he wanted to go on and do the rear main, so we did it that way. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Y'all check out our other content here on the channel. Whole lot of power stroke stuff here on the channel. Cummins, diesel, everything like that on the channel. Go check out our Patreon. If this channel has helped you out, helped you save money or fix your truck, consider going there and becoming a member of that. We do a monthly giveaway and also have exclusive content on there also. This is Automatic Garage signing out. We appreciate y'all, and we'll holler at you later.